Evening and welcome to the Bellows Falls Village Trustee regular meeting. It's Tuesday, October 12th, 2021, and 6 o'clock. We are down here in the Town Hall Lower Theater. Thank you for those who can attend by Zoom, and we'll see it on Fact TV. I'd like to call the meeting to order. And we need to approve the minutes of Tuesday, September 28, 2021. Did you folks get a chance to look at the minutes?
I'll move approval. I'll move approval.
Need a second? Second. Okay, discussion. Looks like you had something.
Well, just a typo on the under manager's report.
Sure.
Says
okay.
letter instead of lister. Leader.
Oh, yeah, I see.
Minor deal, but
Oh,
should have an S in there.
He's a liter, yes. Okay. Anything further?
So, me.
All right, anyone else? Hearing nothing, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we are set. Are we caught up? What were some minutes we missed? I can't remember. I have to go back.
The
to
only
the
thing that
previous
was
meeting.
missing, we did a special set of minutes for the joint meeting at it was a select board meeting at the Rockingham Meeting House in August. So those were posted.
Oh, okay, those are yours, but I was thinking that we had to
Right.
skip a set of minutes because we didn't have.
I don't think we're caught up, I think, on the village side. So,
Okay, good.
yeah.
Thank you. Although technically, according to the state, we don't need to actually approve them. We just look them over. It's just a technicality.
I really don't.
Minutes are minutes.
Well, I like them authorized by a board. To me, they're unapproved minutes until a board reviews it and accepts it. So
Well,
I hear the state, but I don't agree.
yeah. Well, Attorney
So-
Masuko has had that discussion with this board a few years ago.
Yeah, I know.
Any additions to the agenda for routine administrative matters and/or pressing matters that will require ratification at a future meeting?
Additions for
Okay. Hearing nothing else. Moving on to public comment items. Anyone in the public? Nothing. Manager's report.
there it goes.
But it doesn't want to stay on.
I know.
Yeah.
So just a couple of things. First of all, on the water, we had talked a couple meetings about discolored water and some of the complaints that I'm sure some of you had been receiving. We did work with the state. Some of it resolved itself just by normal turnover, but we're also doing a slight reagent injection that helps control some of the manganese, which is part of what is creating this discoloration. So that also seemed to help. So between just turnover and also this new reagent that was approved by the state, I think you've seen, at least I've seen at my place, a substantial improvement in the water quality.
That's
and
clear now.
discoloration seems to have disappeared. So hopefully if you're getting a complaint now, it's just because we're doing flushing, which is again part of a routine schedule. Sometimes you do see people get discoloration when we're doing flushing. So you might see a complaint or a concern about that, but right now there's nothing with the water itself. So just an update for people that had been questioning or concerned. The other thing was, and I'm sure other members of the board might want to chime in, but the park dedication for the around Fuller Memorial Park was done last Sunday. Tremendous amount of local work went into the park, from its planning to its fundraising to ultimately its construction and dedication on Sunday. And it's a great addition to our downtown. If you haven't had a chance to stop by, I would recommend that you go and walk through and observe and appreciate all the efforts from your friends and neighbors who made that happen. It's really a local effort, and it really reflects well on our community. So for all those that worked on it, a heartfelt thank you, and I think it's going to be a great addition to our downtown.
Yeah, it looks great. All set? Okay. Did anyone have any other comments about the park or anything like that at this point? I hear nothing. Okay, moving on to the agenda. We will get to update the Westminster District Number 5 legal review. I believe Masuko is here.
Raise here.
Yeah, I looked at the camera and I could see him in the background. He's gonna need a microphone.
Yeah, you can use this one.
That's excellent.
Oh, either one.
We'll give him a big gavel if you'd like.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
what's the point of the gavel? This isn't a hearing.
apologize.
That's quite all right. I'm so tiny, you know? Not very
Snuck
no-
right in. Nobody
Yeah, not
noticed.
very noticeable.
So I guess I'll go ahead and start. So
Here, you can use mine.
I'd asked Ray to come and just give a couple of sort of updates to the board. Obviously, we have not had a lot of official activity since this agreement was initially signed back in, what is it, 82, I think it was. September of 82.
40 years old.
So it's aged a bit. We've also haven't done a lot in terms of updating our records since probably the last update that I can find, where we went out and did either an accounting inventory or some kind of physical inventory, is over 10 years old as well. So that's something that we'll have to do on our end. But I think one of the problems that we're running into now is we're having some payment timeliness problems getting our money. And in fact, we have now gone through an entire billing cycle. We are still owed $8,000 from District 5 from the previous bill, and we just billed them an additional almost $24,000. So with that as a little bit of a background, I'd asked Ray to come and maybe talk to you about a couple of parts of the agreement that might not be in alignment with our practice since '82, and then maybe some other options or opinions as to how we can go forward and try to address some of the other concerns maybe that the board might have.
And I'm glad to see that we're currently going through an ordinance review. So,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah. And we're about done, we're getting ready to hand them to Scott so he can hand them to you.
yeah, well, yeah, 40 years is long enough to go. I was noticing this was actually 5 months before I took over as village council. So predates even me. Yeah, yeah, I know. Yeah, that's old. Yes, I know.
That's even
I
funnier
do.
now.
I'll take it any way you want to give it. So, at the time we had this agreement, there was still a North Westminster, Gageville, colloquially. As you know, they merged with Westminster Town some years ago. So as a separate municipal entity, they do not exist. But Westminster had to pick up all the obligations of North Westminster. They come under the Chapter 8, our sewer use rules and regulations of the village, under the terms of that agreement. And that we have periodically updated, not a lot, not often, because we haven't needed to. But because they do fall into that, we control the rates that they pay. I'm not entirely clear how the rates were established in terms of the estimated usage. We did it on cubic feet way back then. One price for single family, another price for multifamily units. And the multifamilies didn't distinguish between 2 units and 15 units, although I don't know if there's anything much bigger than 2 or 3 units in Gageville anyway. We have, as you all know, we have upped our utility usage rates for water and sewer. And so that has been passed along to them, at least in theory. We bill twice a year in arrears. So when you get your bill in September, it's for the previous 6 months, and March, the same thing. And we spread it out over equal payments over a 6-month period, although users can pay it all at once if they choose. They don't get a discount for paying it early. So most people, I think, tend to pay it by the month. For whatever reason, the agreement with Gageville was that they would pay once a year on the first of the year. And it doesn't even, it doesn't specify for the previous 12 months, but I don't know if there's any other way to interpret it. Since they don't have meters, we're estimating what they have used. In looking at the billing, I see that we actually bill them when we bill village users or meter users every 6 months. So we haven't been following the agreement in the sense that we're billing, or that we're billing them so that they can pay on the first of the year. And we're doing it in yearly increments rather than 6-month increments. So the agreement would have to be modified by agreement in order to change that. it certainly makes sense to me. And again, I don't work in the finance office, but to be billing them on the same rotation or same cycle as we do everybody else. And maybe back in 82, we hadn't gone to 6-month in arrears billings monthly. I'm not sure. I don't have those records. There's also a provision in the ordinance that if we find that the estimated usage, which we locked in 40 years ago, is no longer equitable, we have the ability to look at that, including in using the a metering system for those people who are not tied in the village. And those are the ones we're doing by estimation. So there is that option. I have no idea what the cost would be of that. Our sewer charges are based on our water flows. So we assume that water coming in goes out in some fashion. Where you have all these homes that are, many of which are on, well, I don't know how many, some of which I think now benefit from village water, but not all of them for sure. So how you would implement a metering system, you'd have to talk to Rob. I'm not sure how the mechanics or the engineering of that would work. But as a minimum, those estimated usages from 1982 of 10,700 feet for a single family unit, up to, we capped out at a 4-family unit, 32,800 cubic feet. Certainly those should be reviewed by, Scott mentioned taking an audit or an inventory of the properties out there. I don't know if we still have 39 single family units and 7 multifamilies, or what the multifamily units consist of. I would be surprised if there were not more multifamily units, just given the demographics and the way the village housing has gone over the last 40 years. But without a boots on the ground, walking around, looking at the grand list in Westminster, I don't know how you could know that. It doesn't appear to me that we impose late fees, penalties, and interest. We certainly do on users in the village, and it's pretty substantial. There is no reason why those cannot be imposed on the users in North Westminster. So
we don't have minimums either on them. Although here in the village, you have a minimum. You have to pay the minimum. And according to the way this is done, and my interpretation of looking at the 82 agreement, was that one family unit, 10,700 cubic feet. Now, that's not per unit. That's for, that number is being used for all 39 single family units, which double that bill we have in front of us comes to 10,700 cubic feet with no minimums. So not knowing what a house with how many people is using, they're getting a great deal based upon the rate that we pay per cubic feet for the minimum. Even if we don't, one person living in the house and they don't use it, they still pay the minimum. Yet our agreement doesn't cover that, nor late fees, like we already said. And there's no concerns of monthly payments. If we have late charges on a monthly payment.
I thought,
It is on.
Deb, I thought that,
Turn your mic on. It is on. If it's not working, it's on. So that's all I had to say about that. I'm concerned that it's really unequal.
Deb, the impression I got from Scott at our last meeting was that somebody had, I guess the water department had said those numbers are still valid.
Oh.
Did you say that to us?
If you look at the engineering standards, so these are the standards that are applied in a 10-state area. So it's called the 10-state standards. And what they do is they look at utilization by a typical household. And they take that per, it's a standard. So it's not consistent like in the West but in the East, that's fairly consistent. And they average for our area about 70 gallons per person per day. So when you take that on an annual basis, it's about 25,000 gallons per person, roughly, for a year. When you divide that into the cubic feet, it's about 3 people that's on an average household for a consumption per year to get that 10,700 cubic feet when you do the conversion.
Okay.
Yeah, 1 cubic foot's about 7.5 gallons. So it's not that far off. I
Right.
think where there's concern is where you do have, more people, obviously more bedrooms, you'll have more consumption. And places that are maybe more, have been divided into 3 or 4 families that we're only currently billing as a 2-family kind of residence.
Right, I think we agreed last time that if the sewer department staff could do an audit of the users, I don't know who would do it, whether it would be the office staff or Rob's staff, but it would seem as though I'm more concerned with the audit of the numbers of units. If they, and it seems like they feel that these standards that were set in '82 are still not that bad.
Right. So probably the way to do that, because the physical audit is you probably would have to go look at the Lister cards in Westminster Town Hall and see what's on file. And see what's changed for the locations that we have. And our mapping isn't great, so we still have to do some physical work out to figure out, are we matching up addresses and locations? Because I'm still not clear that that's correct.
Right.
But then when we have that at least secure, then go back and say, okay, now what's on the Lister card? Has it been converted to a 3-family, or some of them have been converted to multifamily? And I don't think we kept up, obviously,
With that, yeah.
with that.
Well, I think to the extent that we could begin to work on that, it would make sense. A couple of other things, Ray.
Wait, I just want to stop for a second. I want to clear up that math question.
Yeah.
How many cubic feet does a family use annually?
Again, if you're taking it, they take it per person, so it's roughly 70 gallons per person per day.
So
An average
25.
family,
2,500 a year? what you're saying.
25,000,
25,000 a year
right,
per family,
per person.
per person. Now multiply that by at least 39 single-family units, and you're gonna come up with a lot more than 10,700 cubic feet.
But not
That's
when
cubic feet.
but not when 1 cubic foot is 7.5 gallons. Then you have to do that math.
Then you have to do that math.
Yeah.
I
And it
just think
gets
that
bigger.
Still doesn't look right, based upon the number of people. And we're using the 10-state standard,
Right.
I'm assuming as the
Right.
average.
Right. And I couldn't go back. I tried to find it for the 1980s just to see if there was an old one, if it had changed over time.
Right.
The only one I could find is roughly it's like 2004 is the last iteration that I could see.
Okay.
Roughly, yeah.
Ray, then in looking at the correspondence that they attached, it would appear that the person in Westminster is taking the position that once they collect from the customers, the individuals, they'll send us the money. Okay? That's not the requirement.
No, it's
The
not.
requirement is for Westminster to pay it.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, they,
So I think we have to make it clear to the select board and the manager in Westminster. And I think the other question I had for you was, if it says once a year, which it does say once a year, what would be the year? What date? Would it be December 31st? Would it be,
Was it real clear?
yeah,
it's
no,
not clear, but
it's
I
not.
read it.
Right. I mean, it was signed in September, so I don't know what they considered a year based on that. I don't know.
So I don't even know, well, no, actually it says the payment shall be due the first of each year. So I
Right.
don't know if you're talking about the
First of
first of
each
each
year.
calendar year
Yeah, that doesn't
or
say,
the
it's not
first of
clear.
each year of the contract. I mean,
Okay.
obviously, as of the date of the contract, I don't know when when they were connected to the sewer line
Yeah.
in Gageville. So they couldn't have had a history of actual usage as of that date unless they did some kind of metering. So, and I didn't realize it was this 10-state standard, but, you know, again, it's on some kind of an annual basis. What the year is, whether it's a fiscal year or a calendar year, should be agreed upon. But that has nothing to do with the users. We don't bill the users.
No,
They don't have a contract with us. Our contract's with Westminster.
right.
That bill comes due once a year, and it's due upon when it's tendered. So I saw the notation about, well, we haven't collected it all yet.
Yeah,
That's not an issue. We're
well,
not there for enforcement of payment.
that's the way they're interpreting it,
I-
okay? So obviously, we've
clearly.
got to straighten that out. But I think that what I would ask you to provide for us is that, if, for example, they still owe 8,000 from the March billing, and the October billing was 24,000 or something, then I think we should send them a note saying that the 32,000 and change, whatever the number is due January 1st. And if any delay beyond January 1st, they will accrue a penalty of whatever our
Whatever
standard
percentages,
penalties are. I think we've got to make that clear to them. I think to ask them to agree to a 6 month versus a year at this particular time when we're going to start imposing penalties, probably not the best strategy. But I think it's clear that we ought to make it clear to the town of Westminster that this sum, the October billing plus what's left from the March billing, that amount is due in full January 1st. And if it's not paid, any balance not paid will be subject to the penalties.
Can we do that? It doesn't say, there's no language in there allowing us to charge them additional fees. There's no language in there.
Yes, it does. It is. It
Yes,
says,
it's the same as, but it's not specifically saying, if you don't pay on the first, guess what happens? We're gonna slap you with a fee.
Well-
And they're already behind from last year, so they should actually get a fee on the $8,000 that's
they're
still left.
they're behind from the
Right.
March billing, I think.
So yes, they're behind from the last billing, but they're only supposed to pay once a year. Although for some years, the office
Well,
has been
whatever.
asking them to
I mean,
pay more frequently.
However we assess penalties,
Yeah, I mean, that's covered under the sewer ordinance.
yeah,
Right.
The agreement just says they're subject to the same
So the
rules,
same
same rules and
ordinance.
regulations.
Okay, but we give them the pass of a year as opposed, according to this, as opposed to paying every month or paying the 6 month
Right.
billing.
Yep.
In addition to that, I believe that we are way off on what we're actually charging for the flow because we're estimating it. And I don't believe it's accurate based upon the number of people that you'll find in the homes in the 29, if there are still 29 single houses, and then how many multi-units with at least some two families they anticipate.
We would have that data if we just averaged what our village rates are, wouldn't we?
We can't know that, can we?
Well, we meet our hours.
Know exactly how many gallons come in? We don't.
No,
No.
It's an estimate.
it's an estimate.
We're using these numbers here because it's exactly, the billing is exactly the amount of 10,700 for an entire,
Based on
What
a
I'm
typical
Community-
utilization.
What I'm saying is if we have,
Right.
42 units in the village of Bellows Falls.
Yeah.
What is their rate and what are we charging for that? Use the same for North Westminster,
Right.
I don't know.
just
I see what you're saying as an average, but is it appropriate? Again,
Because otherwise.
calling
it's
for an
gonna be
audit
a
is
guess.
allowable and it should be done. More houses, less houses. We know there's at least, probably a couple of houses that are no longer, occupied or gone or so on and so forth, but other homes may have been taken back over.
Well, I
so-
think it gets to Ray's point about, or the previous discussion about a minimum, and I think maybe Deb brought it up. but-
Yes, I did.
So there
Everybody
are
pays
probably
that.
homes where there might be one elderly person there. There might be homes where you have multiple families and generations in there. So you're gonna have a huge difference in those two types of occupancies, and they both might be single-family homes.
Right.
Well,
Oh,
shouldn't-
yeah. Go ahead.
Shouldn't their board of listers have that?
Well, yeah, that's talking about the cards. Yes, the cards would give us information.
Right.
Yes, it should.
The number of units, not the number of occupants.
Not the number of
Right.
occupants.
Right.
But we should, what I'm saying is if we want to charge a minimum per household, because they may be using less than that, and we're giving them that based upon the estimate, we would need to redo the agreement, not just reevaluate the number of homes. In order to do this properly, we should do a new agreement. It's 40 years old.
Right.
We should have them to the table and we should ask to do amendments to this document.
And it's a, at least in theory, it's a pass-through for Westminster. Clearly, they're not collecting what they should be. And I don't know how they bill. I don't know if they bill monthly, 6 months, a year. I have no idea how they bill their own users, so they can pay us.
Yeah.
But the ordinance itself provides that for users who do not have metered wastewater shall pay an estimated rate to be determined by the trustees. And that's where this 10,700 feet came from originally. If the trustees find that the estimated rate is inequitable under the circumstances for a specific user, then a meter may be required to determine actual usage. Or the trustees may make such other adjustments or arrangements with the user as shall be appropriate under the circumstances. In our case, Westminster is in theory the user. That's who we contract with. But if there, as Scott just said, or Deb said, if there's one elderly woman, 80 years old, living with her cats all alone, using them a couple gallons a day, as opposed to the family of 7 using, washing more clothes, taking more showers. That may be the case where it is, quote, inequitable, and you could require a meter. Who's going to pay for the meter? Who's going to install a meter? That's a subject for discussion with Westminster.
And what if they're on well water? I mean, it's like, I don't know. I mean, it's just,
You
you
can
have to
you
meter
can still
the,
measure the amount of flow from a well.
Yeah.
okay.
It would pass through the meter, you just would be charging for the water, you'd be charging for the
That, to me, the auditing of the numbers and all that kind of stuff is all a great idea, as long as the manager and the staff have the time to do that, okay? What I'm saying is, let's just focus now on what we're owed and let them know that they're going to be charged penalties and interest beginning January 1st of 2022 on any unpaid balance. And that we can do within the agreement. Let's do it. Maybe that'll provoke a discussion about maybe we could have a committee to look at revising the agreement, all those lovely things. But let's just do it now so that Westminster understands that waiting for their residents to pay the bill isn't part of our deal. Our deal is with the town of Westminster, and let's get paid. So I
And
really
keep in mind that when the agreement was written, it wasn't with Westminster, the entire town.
I know, it
It
was
was
North
just this
Westminster.
little tiny village of
Right.
40 or whatever number of houses it was, 45 houses. I suspect that they had a much stronger incentive to keep it current, collect the money, than the town as a whole with whatever, 3,000 or 4,000 residents who don't have the same interest in
True.
enforcing that agreement out in Gageville.
I think we should have a motion to do this, but I do believe the motion should have a secondary part, which does allow that we go forward at some point, say by beginning of next year, with getting an amendment done to this agreement, making a new agreement.
Yeah, but I think,
But no, I'm saying that should be included. Initially, that's the first part of the motion, but the second part should include doing a new agreement, because this agreement is
but
outdated.
don't you agree that we need to do our homework as to how many users are there?
Right, and that's part of,
Okay.
the second part
that's
of the
the-
motion is to get that
Once that's-
moving.
But that doesn't involve Westminster.
No,
That
yes,
involves our
yes and no.
staff.
It involves staff, or just requesting that information from staff, from Westminster. We can do that. You can start with an initial, you don't have to go digging through the books. You don't have to go looking through the neighborhoods. You can get that information from them by asking them. Someone in our offices do need to do that, to ask for the information. But on top of that, according to the agreement, they handle all of the maintenance and services to there, so they should be able to tell us, they must have someone there that does that. According to that, someone services and maintains their lines that connect to us. So it's just a two-part thing. I don't want to let go of amending this ancient agreement, which really does need upgrading, and getting them to pay.
Okay, I don't interpret it that way. I interpret that those lines are the property of the village of Bellows Falls.
No, it says they belong to them. Second page.
Okay, well, all right,
It
that may be
says
similar to the what's up on
NWBC.
Kissel Hill then.
Is that where it goes to?
Wasn't there, I thought there was an agreement, like if there was a breakout there, our people went out, we were reimbursed.
Probably.
But it doesn't say so in the agreement.
No,
So that would be a
it's not
side
covered.
agreement, which isn't documented.
Right.
Yeah, Rob could tell us.
So does
All right, then I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion that we notify, number one, that we notify Westminster that the amounts charged for sewer service that is not paid by January 1st, 2022 will begin to accrue penalties and interest, just like all of our customers are charged. And secondly, and make it clear that it's the town of Westminster that is liable. And secondly, to explore with the town of Westminster the possibility of a review and
And
amendments or review and a rewrite of this 1982 agreement.
All right, I'll second that for discussion.
Okay, discussion. Obviously you have some.
Aren't there a hydrant system out there that we get a hydrant service fee for?
Mhm.
Fire service fee,
Fire
I'm
service
sorry.
fee?
Right. And when the second time they were in here, not the last time, but the time before that, there was some residents that came in that had an issue. I think one of them, if out of my recollection, spoke up that they weren't using our water, but they were in proximity of 1,000 feet or something of a hydrant, and they were paying a fire service fee.
Yep.
And didn't think they ought to be paying it, or weren't going to pay it, the way I recollect it.
Is that part of the sewer agreement? I don't think it is.
No, I'm
I
not saying
think
part
it's
of sewer,
the
it's part of
water.
water.
It's
Part
part
of the
of
water.
this bill.
But I
Yes.
believe if they're not taking care of this aspect, I'm sure there may be,
Pam bills them for any hydrant service.
Yeah.
I'm assuming those are
Right.
separate bills.
That's separate.
They come
We-
from-
we
and
do
they
the
come from
billing on
us.
that. We do the billing on that.
Yeah.
This is the sewer. so.
We might not do the collecting on it.
But it may
we
be
do the
something
billing on it.
take a look at.
Well, in the process of getting together with the Westminster people to look at that agreement and do an audit, we definitely need an audit. Okay, so any further discussion on the
I have-
motion? Yes.
I have two questions. They're kind of along the same. Maybe Ray knows or the manager. Where does the sewer line end in Gageville? Do you know where that stop? I forget where it stopped, how far it goes.
Rob has told
Before
me
the
that.
bridge, right?
Yeah,
Before the bridge.
yeah.
By the where?
Before the bridge.
Yeah.
The bridge,
Right.
okay.
It doesn't cross the bridge.
Does it take in the new development they're doing? Across from Cooperman's?
Across from,
Cooperman's up in there?
Yeah.
Does it,
Uh,
is that
they,
connected?
Well-
they're not connected to anything at this point, I don't
Right.
believe.
Oh,
Because that was the development that objected to paying the
Right.
fire protection.
Oh, yeah.
But
okay.
there was also some, out of my memory, from having been here for a bit, there was some discussion when the select board was talking with Saxon's River. There was some discussion about extending that line beyond that bridge into Saxon's River. And then there was some opposition in North Westminster. And it had something to do, I think Ellen Howard was familiar with it. They were, at the time, I believe it was an 8-inch line or something like that. Whatever size the line is, they were allotted, if they were to develop, say, future development or housing out there, which there was discussion at the time in a location near the bridge, but in the village of North Westminster, it kind of dictated the size of the line that would run to Saxon's River from that bridge and beyond, because they needed a certain size line in North Westminster to be allotted a certain amount of per gallons if they were to build, say, 12 houses or 6 houses or something like that.
But anyway, that's part of this
Right.
review.
My
Yeah.
second question,
Okay.
just so I know, is Kissel Hill and the high school part of this?
No,
No.
they have a separate,
They're separate, right?
They have a different agreement.
They have a different, and they're called a different district.
they are.
Mhm.
Okay, that's what I thought. I
And
wanted to clarify that.
If I may, again, I don't want to prolong this, but from a historical standpoint, in fact, Scott Falzo was here at the time. There was a discussion from 2 individuals on Kissel Hill who were going to, so to speak, sign that line over to us, Bellows Falls Village Corporation, and give us, I think it was an amount of $40,000 And at the time, out of my recollection, the board said no. And one of the reasons for that was because there was some repairs needed there, and they were going to exceed the sum of money that they were going to give us in exchange for taking over the line. So we didn't take it over because we didn't want to be responsible for the maintenance or incurring future cost of upkeep and upgrade, et cetera. So
Yeah, they have their own, Kissel Hill has their own
coalition
committee
thing.
that manages that.
Right.
Yeah,
'Cause they had a break up there a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
That single break cost around $25,000-$30,000.
Yeah.
Right.
And they did not have, at that time, my understanding is they did not have sufficient reserves for that.
See, I recollect at the time, it was a $40,000 figure. I may be inaccurate out of memory, but the reason
that's-
the board did not take it at that time is because the estimated repairs that were said to need, that were needed, were going to exceed that.
That's a different district.
Okay.
Yes.
Right,
Yeah.
it's a
Okay.
different district, yeah.
I mean,
All right.
that development is now more than 60 years old.
Uh-huh.
Right.
All right. No further questions? All those in favor of the motion as stated, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Now you have direction. Thank you very much, Ray, for the
My
the
pleasure.
additional.
Good to see everybody. And congratulations on a fabulous event on Sunday for the new Memorial Park. That was just, as I told many people, that's one of the reasons I'll never leave Bellows Falls.
It was great, yes. All right, moving on, we go to the review, to review rental housing ordinance. We have two people from the ordinance committee here, Hope Brissette and Remy Walker. You can have, I don't know,
Just
you got enough microphones now? Where's the one for the, okay,
one
right
here.
there. But there's only room for one person.
just come up here. We can fit two in here.
Yeah, grab one of those extra chairs. Yeah.
Come on.
Of course, the trustees have already seen this once before. It has gone through many other hands since then, and additional review, attorney review, organizations have had input, amendments have been done, and now we're at this point. Okay, so take it away, Remy and whoever.
Go ahead.
Well, the biggest change from this version to the last version you saw would be the checklist, which really holds all rental housing to the same standard now. So when an inspector visits a property, they know exactly what they're looking for, and that helps landlords too know exactly what they need to be looking for in their rental properties. So there's a really clear standard now as far as what's expected.
Does anybody have any questions? Did you read it? 'Cause
I did.
I like, good, thanks. It's a lot of work, I want to say.
Oh, it sure is.
Yeah.
We've been over this so many times, too.
To refresh my mind, the procedure for doing the inspections, how will those be arranged over a period of, is it like a
Oh,
4-year
districts, that's
period?
right.
Yes,
And you've got zones?
yes, the whole
Okay.
village I believe is spread into 4 or 5 different zones.
Yeah,
And each zone gets, I think it's 4 zones. Each zone gets inspected on a 4-year basis. So there's only one zone being inspected per year. So that way, then they're not overwhelmed with inspections.
and who is going to do the inspection?
I believe.
The health officer.
Yeah,
Sha- and
Chuck,
Sean.
Chuck Wise.
Yeah,
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep, all right.
I knew the answer.
More questions from anyone? Haven't seen all the material?
Do you want to move?
Just for clarification, I think I did clarify it once I read the full document, but complaint-driven inspections are paid for by the complainant. Is that correct? So if a landlord has a complaint, they pay the $150 to have the place inspected. The tenant has a complaint,
I
pays.
believe that, so. I don't have my big book of answers with me.
So I guess
I don't remember everything.
I believe if the tenant has a complaint against the building, the landlord would pay if the complaint was
based upon the validity of the complaint,
based on the
Okay.
village. Yeah, exactly.
Landlord based.
and if not, is that fee waived for the,
Oh, we didn't talk about that. I
waived
don't
for
know.
the tenant, but not the
I
landlord? If the-
I
I
would
believe
bel-
in there are fees for the tenant if they have created a,
Unfounded.
an
Oh, okay.
unfounded request or unfounded
Just to be a
violation.
pain in
We
the
should
you-know-what.
clarify
No
that, 'cause I
frivolity-
don't think it's
frivolity,
100%
Yeah,
clear.
I don't think it
That was
is.
the intent. I don't think
Okay.
it's written that clear.
Someone's talking.
So,
Is someone? I don't think so.
I thought I heard, it could just be my ear.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Hearing voices.
Remember that this process, this is for us, it's come back to us now. So my intent is for us not to look at it again until November. And then, so if you have questions and stuff, you can forward them, we can get them together. If there are changes that need to be made, it'll go back to the ordinance committee. It'll have to go to, once you pass it, which means after it goes back to them, it comes back to the table. Once it's passed, we have to give it public hearing, at least one, maybe two. I don't know, Scott might know that. And then it's another 60 days, once that happens, if everything's good, before it actually goes into effect. So some months will still go by.
well, I think you have to do the public information and a
We do,
public hearing,
yeah.
and then it has to age. So it's going to take some time.
Right, so it'll still be some months out.
I would like to say, it's not changes that you want made, it's changes that you think have an idea, because we've gone over this so many times and had different, there's been so many incarnations. Yeah, how does this sound? I don't know. And then, no, a
But
month
they-
later,
yeah.
we take it out. So we've probably already thought of your ideas. So
If you have more questions, this definitely. stuff that we
Questions are
can
good.
address.
So we're not voting on it? voting
Not
on
tonight.
anything
I want you to
No.
have the month to review it, come up with additional questions or concerns, talk to your neighbors about it, man on the street, kind of things like that, see what kind of feedback you're getting. And then it will come to us, we'll come back, we'll bring it back in the November meeting. I figured the first November meeting, and to see if we're ready to vote on it, to move forward to the
Yeah.
hearing process.
this is really important. So I want everybody to really look at it. It's taken a long time for us to get through this. And we'd kind of like y'all to,
And we're still waiting on the final guidance from the state.
Right.
They've been slow walking their final approvals to this. They've been giving us sort of a verbal and occasional nod, but nothing in writing or nothing official. So we've been prodding them and still don't have final clarity as to
Right.
the
So our
state.
taking our time will give, so for instance, it's gonna go into November, and then
Right.
here, public hearing will probably get done in November into December, and then we're giving it plenty
we're
of
lucky.
time
if
Should-
we're
yeah.
lucky.
to move this along and hopefully get an answer from them,
Yes.
from the state.
I just wanted to say that I've, over the past year, read every draft, I think. So I do recognize
Thank you,
that a lot of work has gone into it. So thank you to your team. And I think it has evolved and concerns have been addressed in a reasonable manner. So thank you.
I think you're welcome. This is a great thing for everybody.
Moving forward and trying
I-
to improve housing and.
It's
the quality of
wonderful.
it.
Well, I think.
And it's
that-
long overdue, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think the important thing is, this is a start because it's,
Mhm.
it's labeled as rental housing.
Mhm.
The brochure starts with that everyone deserves safe housing. And I think we need to recognize that there are a lot of single-family houses that are unsafe that need to be looked at in a similar manner as well, because it benefits everyone in a number of ways beyond health and safety.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for your work.
Yes, go ahead.
So my question is, I've read this several times as well, but this checklist, I'm curious why under the kitchen section, why it points out a smoke detector in the kitchen.
What happens-
Typically, you don't have smoke detectors
Right, they're
inside of a
usu-
kitchen,
They're usually near, outside of the bedrooms.
outside of bedrooms or in other
Yeah.
areas of the apartment unit, but
You're looking
not
at the legal list, aren't you, or just the checklist?
Just the checklist.
the checklist.
Chuck did the checklist.
Yeah.
Under the kitchen, it says, there's three places in here where it mentions smoke detectors,
Mhm.
which is good. One section where it mentions smoke and CO, which is good, but then under the kitchen, it says smoke detector per NFPA 101, and it cites,
We'd
and
have
I
to-
typically, I mean, all I'm saying is that unless the codes change, because that very well, I'm not aware that the requirement for smoke detectors actually in the
In the kitchen.
kitchen
It might be
are required or a
for,
good thing.
Right.
larger unit buildings, because I know the code changes drastically for apartment buildings and things like that. So that code might be specific to larger units. 'Cause that, it changes a lot then. So that might be referencing that. That's why you see it in the kitchen. But I'd have to reference.
We'll have to
I don't
check.
have the NFPA books.
Well,
with
Chuck
me, so
would
I'd
know.
have to
I'll
check
tell
that.
you, having one in the kitchen is not a good idea.
I know,
Yeah.
and there's no, you'll never be making another steak in the rest of your life.
I can vouch, yeah,
Yeah.
my husband made smoke this evening in the oven.
Or even
I mean,
burning
it's
your
good to
toast.
have one just outside the kitchen, but
Yeah.
typically you don't see them right in the kitchen.
Right, they're just outside of.
I think we got 12 in my house, and they,
Just-
up the stairway, adjacent to
Oh,
the
yeah.
kitchen, in the hall, going away from the kitchen
Yes.
is one,
Yeah.
but not in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And the fire chief from
We can bring this to
Westminster
question to
did.
Chuck.
the-
That's
Yeah.
a good
That
one.
would be a
I'm gonna
significant
highlighter.
change if we had to
That's a
do
good
that.
one.
That's all I got. The rest looks good.
Cool.
Anything from
Good.
anyone else for these guys?
I'm happy about you guys
Okay.
reading it.
It'll be back in November. Then you can, and any time along the way, you can send questions, and I'll be sending them to the rest of the ordinance committee too, so everybody can look. And I'll
We'll send
definitely
it back
take up
to
that
you.
one to Chuck immediately. Yeah, so. Thank you.
Okay, thank
Oh,
you.
good.
Thank
You're
you.
done?
Yes.
Excellent.
Now, don't go away, the rest of the meeting's still.
Yeah, still,
Yeah.
still going on, yeah. Our next agenda item is to review the executive
Thanks.
session procedure.
Good, I'm starved.
This was, yeah, this is put on for management. Yeah, I've got one right here. The older green one.
Don't you have that tattooed by now?
Yeah,
No.
all of it.
Yeah, but, it's
Yeah.
only, I actually asked quite a while ago for a copy, because I hadn't had one for a while.
Yeah, I have a paper copy in my bag.
But she
So
didn't get
I'll
one.
leave these extra ones down here so that when we do this
We
again,
don't lose track, yeah.
we'll make sure. I know that at times it's confusing as to what requires one motion and what
Right.
requires two.
Right, yep.
That's really the distinction, that's to be 100% in compliance, and I know that we're trying, all of us are trying our best to be in compliance with all the appropriate Vermont statutes, and this one is very particular about reasons for executive sessions, and then once we do establish the reason, the process of the motions and the actual format of the motions are important as we go forward. So I wanted to just give out extra copies. Nothing has changed. It's just simply the last few times we've done our motions, we didn't do the second motion in terms of the actual language, as opposed to we were right on our reason. We just didn't do the second motion on the appropriate.
And that's only
Follow-up.
for 7 through 12.
Correct.
So the 7 to 12 gets the two
Two motions.
Yes.
two motions. Okay.
And I
Yeah.
know that it's awkward, and I know that it's difficult,
Mhm.
and one of the things Scott and I talked about was if we know we're going to have an executive session, that we put the reason right here on the agenda.
I think we will try to do that to make it simpler, and you can always change it, but at least that's a starting point for.
I think the big kerfuffle came up at the joint board meeting, when we had to go in executive session there, that got confusing.
Yes.
So, we need to be as clear as we possibly can about doing these, because these are only exceptions, and if we don't do them right, we could have a problem. So as has been noted, that's what this sheet in your packet was about.
Right.
What are the repercussions if we violate the law?
And there's a lot of case law around this, as you can well imagine. It's fairly well established, so it's one of those procedural nuance items that we'll have to pay closer attention to, and I will, if we do know it ahead of time, I'll make every effort to try to give you the guidance from the, which of the numbered items is a reason, and then whether or not it needs one or two motions, which should help then. All we have to do is grab the cheat sheet, and the rest of it should be fairly simple. So.
Any questions from anyone on these items?
You want these back?
Nope, we're gonna leave them
Leave
here.
them here in the.
You're gonna leave them right here?
Yep,
yes.
leave them
Oh,
on the
wait, the
table.
select board has them too, yeah.
Right, so that way, we got more than one in case one disappears. I was
Right.
always nervous that the one would disappear.
Item number 4 is discuss sludge dryer options, and you have some paperwork in your packet.
Right, so I'm not asking you tonight to make any decisions. I wanted to give a couple updates and then get some feedback from you as to other information you might need prior to making a decision. Jigs had called me earlier and asked about just on the RMI contract, the pilot study contract, when we had actually started making payments. So I did a little bit of research before the meeting and it was kind of quick. So we actually signed the agreement with them in October, end of October, October 28th of 2020. By the time the install was done, it was not done until the end of November. So we actually started making payments beginning of December.
So December.
Right. So, and
And we've been paying how much a month?
10,500?
Yep.
10.5. So we've been going 11 months. So we're at 15,000 we've paid so far, 115,000.
Right.
The reason I raised that is you can see the current extension goes until the end of this month.
Correct.
Right.
And the proposal is to go another
6 months. Oh, that's 8 months.
another 8 months.
Right.
And I mean, there's more to hear from Scott on that, but my feeling is that if we were to continue with this, I think we should have discussions with RMI about the monthly amount. It just seems to me that at this clip, this is an expensive item for us. And, granted, our septage revenue has been good, but you never know if that slows down.
Right.
But anyway, well, I appreciate the
Right.
information.
So a couple of factors since we last spoke. One of the issues that, and Jigs was relaying on, we had a previous conversation about the relationship between Cincy USA, which is basically the American offshoot of the actual Chinese company that manufactures these machines, and RMI, which had a marketing and sort of a licensing agreement with Cincy USA. Well, that agreement is no longer in place. My understanding in talking with Cincy USA today and in talking with RMI a week ago was they had a falling out. They are not going to continue a relationship. So Cincy USA is going forward as their own fully integrated. They're going to sell the units, service the units, do the installs. And the difficulty, and Rob and I spent an hour and a half on the phone with the Cincy USA people today, that I have with that is there are only 2 members right now of Cincy USA. They're located in Arizona. They claim they have a warehouse in Yuma, Arizona, which I have not seen and have no way to verify if it in fact exists. And if it does exist, is there actually inventory in this warehouse? They do have, I believe, they are doing additional installs. In fact, one of the people you spoke with today was in Wisconsin because they're doing an install in Wisconsin. So the machines are being, they are being used and bought and installed in other places. But I have a tremendous concern that we'd have no support east of the Mississippi River if we decide, which again, with this pricing, there's sort of a deadline on acceptance of the pricing by the end of this month. Then there's going to be some additional pricing changes. So we had a long conversation with Cincy USA today. Rob and I asked them to make sure that this June 24th proposal was all inclusive, because if I'm going to you with a recommendation for any kind of purchase, I want to make sure that there's no additional costs or other surprises that are going to be related to that. So they told me that they would review this and get back to us and make sure that it is in fact the full proposal for the purchase of the existing machine. We also have a decision to make by the end of the month, as we had talked about with the Casella proposals. Casella had offered us emergency backup pricing, which I think we would do as just a safeguard no matter what we chose, plus the option to do this new service, which would be the hauling to the recycling facility that we talked about in New York State, which has a different price. And then comparing those costs, and this would be a 3-year contract based on our current hauling tonnage. So you would have some certainty in terms of your cost. So that decision has to be made by the end of the year as well. And then the machine that we currently have is actually owned outright by RMI. It's not owned by Cincy. So then the question becomes, the third potential option, if you'd like me to pursue it, would be to potentially have a purchase arrangement on that machine specifically, with some options then to have a relationship with RMI as we decide to go forward with some sort of performance bond or other type of security or support, so that if we did have a problem, we had some ability to collect and not be left holding the bag. I think no matter what option I propose to you, I'm going to propose some sort of performance bond so that we have some potential for recovery. And if there is some sort of falling out with either Cincy USA, they're no longer available from China for whatever reason, and that could be a host of different reasons, or we can't get RMI or some other engineering company to help us with the operation and making sure that we maintain our biosolid, Class A biosolid rating. Now, to complicate that discussion, we had talked the last time about the state of Vermont. They still have not certified our biosolid in Vermont for Class A. The last communication that I received is they wanted some additional testing of the material as it was on the belt in the dryer. It had to maintain a certain temperature over a period of time. And they were having a difficult time trying to do that because every time they open the door, the temperature inside the
Changes.
dryer changes.
Yeah.
And so they can't get a consistent temperature to be able to show them that this is the temperature. So we're having kind of a chicken and egg argument with
With the state of Vermont.
the state of Vermont.
So it's, right now, it's only
We still are only
in
permitted in New Hampshire. I've asked again, as soon as we did get some indication, I said, I'm not comfortable if we don't have at least both states as an option for Class A. I don't think I would recommend to you to purchase or to continue unless we had at least a 2-state availability. So that's also sort of on a time-sensitive track as well, as we're talking about making decisions. So that's a little bit of the background. The Cincy USA RMI relationship is a fairly new change. Was not terribly encouraged with the conversation I had today with the Cincy USA people. Don't have any plans at this point for any other relationships with even another RMI type firm in the East Coast somewhere, where I'd feel a little more comfortable that we could at least have somebody within, if I have a failure on a Tuesday morning, I want somebody here the next day at the latest, because I can't afford to have that thing sit for a week and not be able to process
Right.
material. So
When you say you weren't encouraged by Shinsi, or,
by Cincy.
but you don't have the reservation about RMI necessarily?
Well, since they don't have a formal relationship with Cincy, I'm concerned long-term, because if they change the technology or there's other,
Yep.
issues, we're sort of stuck.
Yeah, parts and things like that. could be a
So,
problem.
we're looking at a 20-year, obviously we want to have a 20-year relationship with this
Right, so we
machine.
wanted stainless steel in order to prevent
Right.
replacement of having to, the
Like-
sheets and everything.
Right.
Question, I just would be, seeing the, new circumstances,
Hmm.
where would the support come from if,
If
Yeah.
we went forward purchasing machine, it would come from Cincy USA, which is basically one guy in Yuma, Arizona, and another guy who runs around the country doing installs.
right?
And no other relationship of any type that I'm aware of with any other boots on the ground type of person that could come and assist us if we had some kind of catastrophic failure.
That's including RMI, or,
They would have no relationship with RMI at that point.
So
so what's RMI gonna do then? What are they
will
gonna-
RMI have a relationship with another Cincy?
I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
There
unclear.
are there is at least one other company that's making a dryer. I don't believe it does this Class A biosolid
Right.
fertilizer.
Right.
And RMI has other businesses that they
that they-
already do.
Yeah.
and
Right.
Beyond this, and I think they only have one other installation, don't they? Somewhere in New Hampshire.
Hooks
I
it.
thought it was in New
Hooks
York.
it.
Hooks it.
Oh, is it? Oh,
Hooks it.
Hooks it.
They also have one in New York.
Okay, so they have a couple.
Right.
Are they Cincy units?
The one in Hooksett, I believe,
That
is.
they are, yeah.
The one in New York, I'm not 100% sure
Okay.
what that one is, Jigs. I don't.
So we could still get support, but buying this machine doesn't give us the options that we wanted to make sure we had longer-term use of the machine before we had to do replacements.
Right.
So
I
the-
don't think that they can give us the stainless steel unless they get it from Chintzy.
So that it would appear that the options that you're mulling are the purchase of the new stainless steel unit from
From Shinshi.
Shinshi
I know, Shinshi
Okay.
USA.
uh,
I can't say it either.
for like $400,000.
Correct.
Okay. Entering a 3-year contract with Casella on the pricing that they've provided.
The previous pricing that we reviewed, right.
Right. And now that, you said that no matter what we did, even if we went with the Chintzy unit or stuck with the RMI for a while, we would continue to pay this monthly rental, right?
We would have some sort of, the emergency backup cost would be, we
So
would
that'd
definitely
be
do that.
like $6,000 a year or
Right.
something like that.
Right. Or they agreed they'd sell us a container, which is about 10 grand. And then we would own it, and then they would just transport it under that contract for those contract prices. So that's another option for the
Okay.
backup.
And then the third option would be to extend the current rental arrangement with RMI, hoping that the unit, doesn't have any problems.
Right.
So, okay, so those are the three things that
Right
you're
now.
mulling over. And
Yes.
and what I would suggest to you is that the RMI, particularly given the change in their relationship with Chintzy, extending the contract, especially for like an 8-month period, I would
Right.
like to see a lower
A lower per
monthly
month
rental.
rate.
I'll talk to Sheila. I think that's probably something we would definitely want to put on the table.
Yeah.
Because again,
Also-
we're going to compare it to Casella, really,
And in particular, if they want like us to buy the unit now that we realize their relationship is broken with basically their pipeline
Right.
to these units and all replacement parts. So those are concerns that are going to make it difficult. I would hate to lose the process all the work we've done so
Exactly.
far.
oh, I know.
I
We're
know.
making a better
Right.
better environmental footprint and have to lose it because we can go right back to the old way.
Right back to
because
where you
even
started.
though we
I
may
know.
lose those options because the dumping places may close at some point too. So,
Well, the grasslands, which is the other option that we had talked about, right? The upstate New York is a reuse option, but it
Mhm.
does require hauling. So
Yeah.
it's not as environmentally, obviously, beneficial.
Yeah.
Put it
Yeah.
that way.
So the purpose of the extension is to allow for a further evaluation of the dryer or to?
I would
get
think it'd be
get
the further
Vermont?
evaluation of the dryer, make a final purchase decision if in fact we can try to either arrange some sort of relationship between Cincy and RMI or some other entity for maintenance and long-term operation, because I'm not real comfortable right now with that, with just Cincy and 2 people out in Arizona.
Right.
Doesn't feel like that's I wouldn't recommend that to the board. It's too much risk.
So another option is to abandon it and we could review it in 3 years.
The other option is you could abandon it, they'd take it away, and, because they own it,
And by that
Yep.
point, there may be different
and
pricing. And
it could be a
other equipment.
whole new market in 3 years.
Different,
Yeah.
different
Right,
manufacturers.
and we would know our cost because we would have a
Exactly.
locked-in pricing.
That's what
So
Encourage.
Yeah.
anyway, so there are options on the table. I'm not happy with
but we'll have to make
some of the
decisions
recent
at the end of the month,
developments,
right?
but
Did you, Jeff?
Would Cincy, on a purchase, would they finance it for us?
I didn't ask them that, but I can.
Would you?
Yeah, I'm waiting to have him revise this June 24th to make sure that we don't have any surprises in that proposal.
Yeah.
So, but I
'Cause
will, I will ask him
I'd
that.
add that as a question.
Okay.
And when do we need to make this decision? The next meeting in 2 weeks?
I'm going to have it in front of you for a decision by the end of the month, because we
Okay.
have to have, this proposal expires in October. Our relationship with RMI, if we don't sign the extension, expires. And our Casella pricing won't hold.
Of course.
He wants a decision. So he agreed to hold it until we make a decision by the end
Okay,
of
so
October.
we would have to do all that at the end of the month. Okay.
So we're really sort of up against it. There's not much more.
And is there any historical data on if we were to continue with the machine, like, as far as maintenance costs, that sort of, what could we expect?
What's predicted, yeah.
It's such a new technology. I don't think it has a 5 or 10-year history. So we're going only by,
So our savings could be diminished.
Yep.
if
Well,
the
any-
belts
Our
wear out,
costs
or if
could be-
other, right, if other,
Talking to Hooksett
pieces.
or New York.
Yeah.
Have you done that?
have not spoken to them directly.
Okay.
I was
You
wondering.
might get some data from them.
Yep, that's what I was just
Right.
gonna say.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's been an install older than 2 or 3 years
Probably
at this
not.
point.
Okay, but they've had more
So-
experience than we, so there's,
Right.
it's a little, it might be not a lot more, but it could be some more. And also, and how much time we need before we can still get Vermont certification on the side.
Well, if we can't get Vermont certification, I'm not recommending this machine no matter what happens. Because I can't go by, the regulators have to make that decision.
Exactly.
Whatever happened to those thermometers that you have a probe and you put the probe in there and it reads the temperature
Without having
inside?
to open the door.
Without having to open the door, can't you? I mean,
I would think there's something like a meat thermometer is what
Geez,
I mean, the
I mean,
material is
Christ.
thin, but
Yeah,
there has to be
yeah.
some way to measure that direct. I
Right.
would agree.
you
So-
figure that.
Yeah, as soon as you open the door, the temperature changes, so there's just no, I mean,
Yeah.
same thing in your own oven. You're never gonna know. That's what your meat thermometer is for.
Well, that's exactly right. So
I don't know what the
This is not
what the
exactly
big
meat,
deal
but
is.
yeah.
but
it seems like that's got everybody, all wound up.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
anyway,
course,
so that's
we-
where we are, but I wanted to at least give you those updates
Ah.
because there have
Thank
been
you.
some changes here recently.
We all set?
Yep.
On this subject?
Yep.
Okay, we'll be seeing it in 2 weeks. All right, now, item number 5 is the Violet Bridge, the 2023-2032. Of course, every 2 years, they revise their 10-year plan.
Right.
This is that period. They had a meeting last week in Keene. Some people from Walpole did attend. I didn't get to go. Can't remember what I was doing, another meeting, I guess. But Scott's gonna talk to us about it. I wanna let everybody know an address you can send letters to until November 8th. So we'll do that at the tail end.
So we have done as a board, a prior resolution requesting funding for the non-covered portions of this project. I think both the town and the village both adopted separate resolutions. I would suggest that maybe we want to just update those and put those in the record so that they're officially in the record as we go forward. I'd also suggest that maybe we take the same copy of that and send it to all of our federal officials. If there is going to be some sort of federal, either infrastructure program or direct community benefit types of programs, like we talked the old, the federal direct money, I think we just need to keep our senators and our Congress people involved so they understand what we're asking for. But based on this current schedule, you can see that there is some money as early as 2023 from New Hampshire into engineering work. That's the good news. The not so great news is it's only funded at roughly 50%. So the non-participating other is unknown. And you can see that that's a portion of all of the phases of this project. So the right-of-way phase, the preliminary engineering phase, then the construction phase, which they would propose starting in 2028, all has a fairly substantial unfunded balance.
When we started this whole thing, it was only $6 million in 2009.
The cost of neglect
I know.
is steep.
It's true.
And I think those are pretty accurate numbers. I think we had
Yeah,
talked the last time
Almost
that we
3
thought it
times
might
as much
be.
as it was. If they'd only
So-
taken care of it sooner.
You can see now we're up to over 17 million as a replacement or rehabilitation rather.
Will you have a resolution for us next meeting?
I'd like to update your previous resolution and I'll put it in your packet. We still have time to get it in for the
Yeah,
November.
for November 8th or whatever.
And we will certainly share that. Like I said, we'll have I think the town is going to do the same.
as many as possible,
and we'll
yeah.
try to circulate it as much as we can, but just want to get the board and just the public's understanding of where this stands, so.
What's the, at the top of the letter, it says pending approval?
Oh, yeah.
Because it has to go through this public approval process, so they have the 3 mandated public meetings, then they go through another publication process, and then it's adopted. And then
Every
once it's
2
adopted,
years.
it can be amended, and we've seen it amended to where this project is dropped.
Yeah, we'd
So,
like not to see
Right.
that, yeah.
It's, yeah.
For those who cannot, who couldn't get to any of the public meetings that you'll hear about in the newspapers and such, we have until November 8th to send our written comments to William E. Watson, P.E., Bureau of Planning and Community Assistance, New Hampshire Department of Transportation, John O. Morton Building, 7 Hazen Drive, that's Hazen, P.O. Box 483, Concord, New Hampshire, 033020483. Just wanted to give as many people as have the opportunity. People are starting to send letters now. I sent one today too. And getting them to hopefully catching the right person's attention. At some point, there are people who say, this is just dead, stop talking about it. And I continue to say, every year, people revolve through these jobs. And there'll always be an opportunity for someone with an ear who will take up the charge in New Hampshire and help us get this taken care of. So that's the point. Anyone else have anything else on this subject? Okay, we'll see the resolution next meeting. Next, item number 6 is discussion of school zone safety ordinance. I asked this to be on here. We don't have such a thing, and the schools don't have one either. However, there is a federal ordinance about guns, and there's with 1,000 feet away from near schools. There's also an ordinance, a federal ordinance, I believe, about drugs, or the state ordinance. I'm not sure which one it is. However, the reason for bringing this up had to do with a flag with a profanity in the president's name that was flown right near Church Place, where all the kids go by in the school bus. The police politely asked that they remove it. It was removed for now. And my concern is there anything we can do? Does this board wish to do anything? Are there any concerns? I understand there are lots of freedom of speech concerns. I do understand that. But I am also concerned about what we expose our children to on a regular basis. And within the school zone, you can't put, let's see, adult entertainment nearby. You can't do certain things. We've had uproars about certain people being moved into Church Place before. The past years has been complaints about that, people that are placed there, and those things have gone on and on. So I wanted to know if this board has any desire to do anything or consider doing anything. It would go to the ordinance committee, and they would have some months to work on it. But I just wanted to see what the feeling of the board was.
I would think that this should be a joint board discussion, because it would seem to me it should be a town ordinance, not a village ordinance.
Okay.
Saxons River School is in Rockingham. It's in the town of Rockingham, Village of Saxons River. When you look at the Rockingham School Board, their responsibility extends to all 3 schools: the middle school, the Central, and Saxons River. So I think it's a good idea. As you said, there are a couple of things like guns, I think,
Guns and drugs.
and
yeah.
drugs
Mhm.
that are in some kind of an ordinance or policy or law.
Mhm.
But I think, and I think this is something that maybe the school boards, might be
Get
interested in.
behind or something. I have spoken to the superintendent and asked him if they had anything, and he wasn't aware of anything that was not already policied on school property. He was going to look and see if they had anything, but I don't believe he'll find it at this point. But
Yeah.
he is aware of what I was interested in.
Am I correct? Am I
right.
correct that there's a clause in one of the zoning provisions that there's not to be profanity on signs, or?
There is one in the offenses against persons and property, which is one of the ones that the ordinance committee is working on or has worked on.
Village
Um,
ordinance, isn't
The
it?
village
Yeah.
ordinances, yes, village ordinances. And the concern about it was, when I brought it up, is the concern about freedom of speech. The Supreme Court has done a lot of additional expansion of freedom of speech law. And so the concern is what you can say and what you cannot say, whether it's not just verbal, but written material. And that was a concern. Scott might have some more information on that one.
Well, I think that's part of it. The other part of it is, since it's it's not in a commercial building, or it's not on a place where you might even have a home office or that type of advertising. It's just somebody's protected speech. And we can regulate signs in the right of way. We can regulate certain activities on public spaces. But when you get into people's private property, it gets the law's been pretty clear about what you can or can't do. And it gets to become a slippery slope in terms of enforcement and the definitions of what is obscene, and it gets quite difficult.
Isn't there's something to political signs too, correct?
Yes.
Right.
Mhm.
Three things come to mind. One, I was just advised recently when I shared this agenda with this afternoon from New Hampshire, but we all see them bumper stickers. If you don't like the way I drive, call 1-800.
Right.
There was a case in Florida
Yeah.
where the gentleman was arrested because he had that bumper sticker.
Ah.
Later sued because it's free speech.
Right.
Then I believe the other, maybe Wade's familiar with it, there's a town up north where a gentleman evidently took his carving tool, chainsaw, whatever, and it was a big index finger. So while a friend of mine was reading this, she says, oh, by the way, if you come through Route 10 in Leominster, now there's a huge gold index finger with an FBR or whatever, FJR or whatever. So on private property, but yeah, it's a slippery slope.
Yeah, and my concern is not just in the neighborhood, because you can go by someone's house, as an adult, no big deal. But
Right.
Right.
just at the corner where Church
yeah.
Place turns, there's no way for the buses to go anywhere else. It's one-way street. That is seen by all of our school children. Is there a possibility of something? It's worth a discussion.
Yep.
It's worth a discussion with the select board. It's worth a discussion with the school boards to see if they think there's any value to it, if there is any way to do it. I understand the slippery slope issue. I'm specifically targeting the children in our district. And that would be at any school, whether it's Saxon's River or right here. So that's it.
Well, if
And,
that,
good.
I'm not sure who owns that specific address, but if that was a rental property, most rental properties, I know when I had mine, were
Oh, yeah.
considered commercial.
I don't believe it is.
I don't believe it is.
Don't believe it was.
I think it's owned.
So
single family.
two things. The police department asked the owner to remove it, and they did.
And they did.
Okay, well, I appreciate that, because I did see it, and I
It's a light
actually
request, yes.
got a complaint that day. Yeah, I would support pursuing, at least finding out if there's anything that we could do to,
Right, if
Put a
not,
little
if we
teeth
can,
into it
if we
down the road.
cannot, we cannot, but
we
if
don't know until
there
we.
is, public discussion isn't gonna hurt anything for
Right.
people to understand. And if nothing else, it just makes people see what we need to be concerned about. If
Yeah,
that
if we
makes
can
sense, that
control
makes
it, we
sense. If it
should.
doesn't, it doesn't.
Somehow.
Yeah.
If it's
If it's possible,
doable.
right. I don't need anything further on this. You guys, okay, at this point, we'll bring,
Yeah.
select board makes sense. We'll go to the next joint board with the item and see
Right.
where it
We'll
goes
do a
from
little bit
there.
of research before then, so we
Yep,
have some.
and I'll have
meat,
more discussion with the school superintendent and the boards before that, so, thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is the Vermont State Use of Force Policy Update.
So I just wanted to, it is in effect, it went in effect October 1, and it was done by basically executive order, so the governor did it. So we don't have to adopt formally as a select, or a trustee board or a select board or any other level of government. It's done as part of our executive level. But we did talk about this in July.
Yep.
So we had just a brief
Yeah.
conversation. Since then, our supervisors and our officers have had training, so that they had the initial training on the policy. And now they have started training just the rank and file. So there has been some initial implementation training. There's an additional requirement on this for, I think it's 14 hours of additional, there was some additional training which has not taken place. But in terms of awareness and just general implementation, our force is aware and has at least been given the initial guidance as to how to enforce this. So it is now
In place.
in place.
And because it says, see, it continues to say draft,
I know.
draft copy, I
It's
just,
the final draft,
Yeah.
and it hasn't been, they have not put it on as officially approved. So this is still the same one.
I spent a lot of time online last week because it was town fair. Didn't see any of you guys, didn't see any of the select board. I saw you, yes.
Yeah,
Yes, Wade, I did see you.
every day.
I did, I swear, I did. But there are new board members here and the new board members on the select board who I would have thought should take advantage of it, especially when it's an online forum. And once you're signed up, they give you additional classes that are already logged, so they're recorded. You can go see them anytime at that point. But this was one of the pieces. They spent one whole day basically on policing, one whole day on equity. I mean, just, all through the week. I didn't get enough points to win a prize, but I, because I didn't play the game. They have a game thing they do. It just shows participation. And I was like, I don't even know how to put it in. But I figured it out. It's too late. But I spent most of my week doing that. And there were a lot of great modules in there. And there's a lot of great information, updates and things like that. So this is just one of them. All right.
I'm impressed. I'm
Yeah,
impressed.
right.
I am.
Hey,
Truly.
learning is an ongoing thing.
Yep.
Okay, so.
Mm-hmm.
Number 7 is the Vermont State, I'm sorry, cover that. Number 8, discussion of DEI training. That's another piece. I am currently on the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee of VLCT. If you could pass, just as this information. And
They had a whole day on that.
they had a
too.
whole day on that, and I spent a lot of time there too. So, and in particular, because I didn't want them to think I wasn't showing up for my own committee's meetings. So, but because of that, and that a lot of what we're doing is by the end of the year, hopefully by the beginning of 2022, there will be a recommendation from my committee on trainings, how to perform, how to do regular trainings that VLCT will find their way to adopt at some point. I would like our board, our municipality, to sign on to do the trainings, every department, including our board. I mean, I think this town should do the same, but I've put together a little small list of good reasons to do it. One of them is risk management, which is a great reason for us insurance-wise to do the trainings. And because I think it'll give us a broader perspective, give everyone the opportunity to feel equitable in their job, that they're all included and that they are all being allowed the same advantages as every other employee in our village. And I think it's important to do it. When I was working in Seattle, I had to do it through the bus company I worked for, and they did it every few years. It's a great way to just open your mind up. People get agitated by the number of people they see all the time, and everybody has some feeling about something, which falls under these trainings. And I think it's important that we consider moving forward. This would be moving through the months whenever they start offering the trainings. And I would like to see us move to say, yes, we'll do these when they are offered.
And you're talking about for the board and
The board and the departments.
departments and staff and whatnot?
Yes, that would include all the
Employees,
staff.
yep.
Yep. And at some point, I would think that the town, if we do this, and the town would say the same. They aren't ready yet. We have not gotten any modules together at this point. We're just basically, we learned about each other, and now we're getting additional trainings from other experts and that sort of thing, so we can put together a good use training module, at least one.
What's the training module proposal look like? We're talking a weekend, we're talking an evening, we're talking what?
We are talking about, we haven't even done that. At this point, I would expect that initial trainings will be done with an in-house view and then with recordings in order to roll them back out as needed to those who couldn't make it for the training and on a regular, like say, annual basis or every 2 years. We haven't figured that out yet either. So, but it's coming. I've been doing this for the last several months. We're getting close to putting some pieces together. So I would just like I'd like to see our community become more diverse, more equitable, and more inclusive in our government and the way it works that way as it spreads out through the community as well. Vermont itself is attempting to become more diverse. We need to get with the times. So, thoughts?
Well, yeah, the thing about equity that concerns me is that, and it probably couldn't apply to any of it, is that, you know, we're all created equal or whatever that's supposed to mean. But we have a range of abilities. And I think when you're in the workplace, there's workplace expectations, both in terms of how you act, but also how you perform at your job. And I think that I would hope that in the enthusiasm to educate people about equity, inclusion, and diversity, that we're not confusing that just because we're equal, you can slough off and not do your job. I mean, it really and truly, you know, it shouldn't become a seminar on how to sue your employer. You know, and I don't mean to be disrespectful or anything else, but I think that there is a balance, and you know, I view occasionally some of our towns around the state and the issues they bring up, and to me it's bizarre, and it's probably cloaked in DEI. But anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there, and certainly I want all of our employees to be safe and treated properly, and so
What
you
brought
know,
this to the fore for me
training is important. I think it's got to be done very well, and it can't be done in these extensive, you know, week-long seminars and stuff like this. It has to be, you know, short.
Everyone has a job to do. That's right. That is not the intention, and on the committee, I'll make sure to remind, if that's necessary, that we can't do that. Everyone has a job to perform. These are just an enhancement to what we already do. And based upon the near litigation that we just completed with one particular department, it should be evident that it is necessary for at least one department. If you do that, you need parity. So all departments would need to receive the training.
Right.
So.
No, that's a very
on
good
this
example.
Side of the table, right, thank you.
Why you?
I wanted to be sure. I didn't include you. I turned my head this way, not this way.
Yeah, please be equitable.
Yes, sir.
Turn to us.
At one point, we did have where an individual did come in, and we had some training on whether it be harassment at work, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, this evidently is a new element, whether politically motivated, that's up to debate, but we are an equal opportunity.
So is the board interested in this when it comes around? When the modules are completed and they're available to the public?
Yeah, I think
Yes.
once the
I support
information's
it.
available,
I think it
Yeah.
is.
When we get there.
Yep.
And again, it's understanding, our intention is not to take a whole day away from employees performing their
No, I
duties.
think
understand
short
what you're saying.
messages to the point are good.
Okay, so I think we've covered the subject, and when we have modules ready, I'll let people know that we're getting ready. Because they'll have to go through VLCT, and they have to do their approval process before they actually become released.
I think in years past, we had a speaker come from the VLCT and address some of
The
this.
subjects?
Yes, so maybe that is an option again.
Exactly. Okay, thank you. I don't think I was ever on the board when that happened.
No, I was just going to say, it
Some
goes
time
back
ago.
quite a ways, yeah.
All right, then I think we're done with that, and we can move on to number.
Stefan needs an update on that.
Does he? Yeah,
I
he
think
wants an
so.
update?
I
Okay.
think it's been a long time.
Well, we get one where I work, so we're
Yeah,
good.
a resolution.
Furthering
for-
is nice.
Okay, when you're ready. Ready? Okay. Number 9 is the resolution for public sewer system bond sale of $988,000. There's some paperwork in here for that.
So this goes back to the initial action of this board in 2016.
Yeah.
And now we've come full circle. The work has been done. This was not just a bond, but there was also a grant involved with this as well. So I think we spent $40,000 in grant money and an additional $988 in bonding. This will, I think, also eliminate one of the larger financial issues that has been discussed here at this board for an extensive period of time, and the due to from, trying to understand where we were not lining up with our numbers. And so when these bonds are sold and we receive that revenue, I think it will eliminate a large portion of that concern in our sewer fund, which I think is, we've talked about many times at this table. So what I need from you tonight is just to approve the resolution, sign the attached page for the adoption, and then basically the actual sale and all the other aspects are handled by the bond attorney. So we've done
We have two documents to sign, Scott, is that correct?
yeah, we've done two documents. The second one being then just it's just basically a second, so there's one that says number 1 and it lists the 988, and then the other one is for the resolution itself.
Yep.
Okay.
So, and both of them are related back to that original 2016 action
Right.
by the previous board.
Scott, on the bottom of the first page of the resolution, it talks about a user charge sufficient to pay the same as the same shall become due.
Mhm.
Is that, I mean, I know this is we're looking at semi-annual principal and interest payments, et cetera, but is there
Yes.
going to be additional costs associated with that sentence or that?
No.
No, okay.
And these bonds aren't callable, so my understanding is that basically once you approve this, we will be doing 60 payments of $21,457, which is, the 1.75 interest rate on April and then again in October of each year through 2051. So if any of us are still around in 2051, maybe we can celebrate
Woo-hoo!
and burn the
Document.
the
Yeah,
document.
that's right, yeah,
If not, we're lost to history. What can we say?
yeah. All right,
I'll make a motion to pass the resolution and certificate regarding the $988,000 sewer bond.
need a second.
Seconded.
Okay, any further discussion on this? Okay, well, I would ask, you want us to sign these copies? Is that
That'd be
good?
great.
You have, okay, you're
Yes.
fine with that. So if I start on one of these.
Yep,
All right.
you start one of them, that's all I need.
Okay, having the motion in mind, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay.
Now,
so-
do we need another vote for this the
Is that-
bond itself?
I think you said by resolution and
And
certificate.
certificate.
The
Did.
certificate is the
Yep,
second,
all right.
So we
item.
should be good. So
good.
I will
Yes.
sign and pass these around.
While you're doing that, just a couple of updates
Yeah.
on the financials, because I know Deb had asked me some questions and I just wanted to answer for the full board. One of the questions that she asked me was about the police cruiser. Originally, we had sold it and then the buyer had backed off. It is now back up for online auction. I believe that auction closes at the end of October.
Okay.
So I will report to you in November. Hopefully this time we'll have a buyer that will execute and we'll be able to then report to you on the disposition of the cruiser. We have one additional transaction, which is water and sewer fund balances, and it goes back to the work that was done on the Burt and Blake Street improvements. And as part of that, there was a portion of that improvement that was supposed to be charged to the town highway fund. And that was approximately $279,000 when it was all said and done. That was not in fact charged to the highway fund. It was charged 50% to the water fund and 50% to the sewer fund. So we are making the appropriate adjusting entries and charging the highway fund
Wow.
of the town the appropriate amount.
So 130,000 approximately.
135,000 you
Per.
should see
Yeah.
in both funds
Both
as
funds.
Wow.
additional. And that, I believe, will be the last of the large, oh my goodness, moments that we
Yep.
have run into.
You
I
are.
think the rest of our concerns are relatively small potatoes compared to these two things. The big one was this 988,
Yeah,
and then that one was another one as we went back through resolutions and trying to figure out where things didn't line up.
thank you.
So, anyway, so, and it's not reflected, by the way, the reason I'm jumping into all of that, it was not reflected when I did
In this
this
printing,
printing on the 7th of October. So it will be reflected in your next updated budget status reports.
when you're done, Wade, just pass that to Scott. Thank you. All right, that moves us on to, thank you, gentlemen, and moves us on to the financials, the last item. And I know you always have questions. I want to make sure these guys, do you have finance questions? Okay. Jigs.
Well, I'm going,
Then wait.
I'm going to do the short version. The issue of overtime is a concern for me at the police department and to a somewhat lesser extent to the sewer department.
Okay.
When you look at the salary account for the police department, recognizing that we're understaffed by 2 officers, and you look at that salary account, I think we're a third of the way through the year. If everything was on budget, we'd be that account would be at 25% of the budget, and where is it here?
Page 7,
Page
maybe?
6 of 9, isn't that what the police
It's
department is?
7, I believe.
Page
Oh,
7?
is it 7? Okay.
Okay, here it is, yeah.
6, maybe?
We are at 25.06,
Correct.
okay?
Okay.
That's with
9,
2
6.
officers missing, okay? So we are, with the combination of overtime and part-time, I'm glad to see we are getting, that the chief is getting some part-time, increase in part-time services. We're right on budget. And it would seem to me that we've done things like reduce some coverage that would seem to me to indicate that we would be under that 25% as of the first 3 months. But, so anyway, I would just put a cautionary note out on the overtime in the police department. As I said, it's a little bit of an issue in the sewer fund as well. And
And we'll get some recapture through the FEMA process as we go forward and file for those reimbursements. So
right.
that will, I think, not obviously eliminate your concern, but I think it will help to maybe modify some of that impact.
The other general comment is on the and part of this could be timing differences, but if you look at the sewer fund, for example, and you look at the amount of debt service that we paid off in the first quarter, I think we had our annual debt service number is 750,000. We've spent just under 500,000 in the first quarter. Okay, or 65% of the budget. That's probably why our due from or due to has gone up to $1.4 million. But you'll also notice that Walpole, who generally represents 20 to 22, 23% of our of the cost, is at 14% of their annual budget versus we're at 65 total. So So again, hopefully that's just timing differences that
Yeah,
the
I just
bill.
approved a quarterly billing for Walpole today, so again, that's not reflected in the 10-7.
Right, of course.
And it'll be reflected in the next one, which I think will bring us up to pretty much on track with how, our normal number.
Right, and then the other thing too on the water and sewer is, one of the things is in the finance committee, we've only had a couple of meetings, and we're really dealing with financials rather than, other items. But you look at the Northwest Minister revenue item on the water department and on the sewer department, the sewer fees. We have a budget in the water of 24,000. We have 45,000 budgeted in the sewer. There's no accrual of income, and I believe that those revenue items are accrued. If you look at the sewer charge of 400,000, I'm assuming that's the initial billing, the full amount of the billing.
Yeah.
But it's been fully accrued. So, you would expect that there'd be something like 28,000 or 22,000 of revenue showing in the sewer fund and 12,000 in the water fund. But anyway, those are the main issues that I had with the financials, and of course I have my usual set of nitpick items. I guess the other one I'd say is that if you look at the outside contract services in our finance department, okay, which we all understand, we're using.
It's going to run over.
NIMRIC, yeah.
We're using NIMRIC. You'll see in the general fund, why do I always have trouble? Okay, yeah. We show the last line, this is on top of page 3 of 8. We show $4,500. Okay, I didn't see any number like that in the water and sewer fund.
I haven't allocated any money, and I will.
Okay,
Yes.
so
it's
that's
broken up,
an
right.
allocation.
There'll be an
issue.
allocation.
Yeah,
Right.
okay.
Yeah.
The other parts of the finance is being allocated, but
Yes.
that one.
But that one's not.
That one I
Okay.
haven't done yet.
So that one hasn't been.
Right.
All right.
So you're right. It's all in one spot at the moment. I'll make a
That's
note.
all I have.
That's all you
Yep,
have.
yep.
Wade, did you have anything?
No, actually, you answered one of my questions already, so I'm good.
Great. Okay. Looks like we're good. Okay, it looks like we're good on finances. Thank you, you and Cynthia for all, and the rest of the people in the department for all the hard work on this stuff.
It's
so.
been a little bit of a puzzle, but I'm confident going forward. I think we'll all be in a better spot. I think the board can feel more comfortable on when I report where we are and feel better about making decisions based on that. So it's been a little bit
Oh,
of
there's progress, yeah.
it's
I'd say
progress. It's
definitely
been
progress.
slow, but it's progress.
Yep.
And I do appreciate, they've been great to work with. NIMRIC has been tremendous, and Cynthia's been wonderful. So it's been good.
It's been a difficult road. And you've done great with it, so. Review agenda items for the next meeting, October 26th. And we already have a few that we've listed that'll be
Yes.
included.
The only thing that I didn't put on that I will have for you next time is a request to join the National Opioid, God, I can't say this word either, National Opioid Settlement.
Opioid settlement. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, what Deb said.
Deb does that, yeah. Yeah, so that'll be added to our agenda as
Yes.
well. Okay, is that also going to be a town item too, as well?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
And it's a it's a long process. If you've followed any of that litigation,
Right.
there'll be a special master and a fund, and there'll be an allocation, and who knows what we'll see when,
Yeah.
but it's worth participating.
Okay, did anyone else have anything they wanted to put on the October 26th? You can always send it to me or to Scott as we put it together from 2 weeks. Agenda items for the joint board meeting are about 6 weeks out or so, and there will definitely be some items we just talked about that'll be on the
The
agenda.
principal one we wanted to make sure, and why I put it on for November, and you can certainly move it if you'd like, is I wanted to finalize our tax sale lists.
Right.
So they needed some work. There was some confusion. I want to clean them up.
And we
have
haven't made a motion to move forward, so we need to
Right,
do that.
which
so.
would then hopefully be at that meeting, so we could start that process.
Okay. Did we have any orders, bills, and warrants?
No, I went upstairs to double check, so she didn't have anything for tonight.
Okay.
We signed a bunch of them at the joint.
We did.
Yeah.
We
Yeah, I
did. So we
think
took
you
care of
caught
that
up.
then. So it's mostly cleaned up to just last week's at this point.
Yeah, I don't think she put anything together, wasn't enough.
No, we'll probably see something maybe the end of the month, maybe beginning
Yes,
of
you
November.
will. Yep.
Yeah, that's where I saw a lot of the USDA payments
Yes.
last week. Other business, Scott,
No, I don't think anything else at the moment.
Wade.
Just two quick things. I'm happy to report that there's been, between myself and Betsy Thurston and her volunteers at the EFDDA, I believe there's been approximately 7 fire hydrants refinished in the last week or
Nice.
two,
They look
last
good.
10 days. So that's slowly moving forward with their help and whatnot. I don't know exactly. I want to say it's approximately 180, roughly,
Ooh,
plus
just
or minus,
in the
if-
village.
I believe.
That's close.
It's right. It's right around 175, 180 total everywhere. But anyway, so
Get me
that
the paint, I'll do the one in front of mine.
are you serious?
Oh, yeah,
All right, I'll get it for you. I got it
tell
for
me how to do it.
yeah. No, I will.
I'm sure I can get people on my street.
And
That'd be great.
yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to contact me, and I can point you in the right direction and
Yeah,
get you going. But
great.
so that
See
project's
Wade.
kind of broke ground, and then if it takes a while, so be it. But at least it started. And the other thing I just wanted to mention was I noticed that the town I saw some streets that were swept recently, and they look good.
Trying.
Yeah, the ones that have been done look noticeably better.
Unfortunately,
Here
every
it is.
time you sweep, the leaves fall down.
Yeah, I know, but
Yeah,
at least,
exactly, yeah.
For about 15, 20 minutes, it looks really good.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
does, it's
no,
on my kitchen floor.
but they did. I mean, Rockingham Street the other day looked like picture perfect.
Yeah. But no, they are out there working. I appreciate
I
that.
watched them come up
Nice.
School Street. They got to just before my house, Hadley Street, and they did a U-turn.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Went down the other side. So,
Per plan.
but anyway, that was,
Yeah, yeah.
that was deliberate. It was
Yeah.
a deliberate act.
Anything else? Nope. Okay, Jakes, do you have anything?
Just any more with regards to guidelines on the COVID relief funds usage or whatever?
We are still with preliminary Treasury Department and other interim rules, and they haven't given us any indication as to when they're going to make us, give us final rules. So I think what we'll do is we'll start to work on some preliminary, just working with the board. So I want to do this prior to the budget, so I don't want to bleed it over into the actual budget process. So if we don't get something by November, I'm going to start working through with you guys in December, so we can start thinking about priorities, how you want to go through public discussion and other types of, we can test it to make sure that we're doing it by the interim guidelines, because they're not moving very quickly. So I'm guessing we might not have final adopted by the time we want to make decisions. So anyway, that's the plan.
Okay.
Unless you want me to accelerate it, we can certainly do that.
No,
but
I just,
I know. It's not moving quickly on the federal side.
They're giving it out, but they haven't given us all the direction on how to use it, so.
Right.
No. For myself, 2 items. Number 1, so the board is aware, I meant to do it Sunday, but I didn't. I have, let's see, 92 and change, so $93 left over from our last barbecue, right? I am going to put it into the fireman's GoFundMe account for the park. And so that money will be donated there since they provided food and that sort of thing. So it'll be clean and there'll be a transaction. So I get rid of that, just letting everybody know. I meant to do it on Sunday, so I'd have a piece of paper and say, look, I did it. Secondly, my company is sponsoring the Fountainhead next week. And I have tickets if anyone is interested, free tickets because we get for sponsoring the movie. And that was it. Just that. I'm done. Steph?
Well, finally get an opportunity to check out the Fireman's Memorial. It looks really good. Hopefully, through the years, it will stay that way.
Yeah.
It's very good, so,
Yeah.
Mm.
Maintenance will be the issue now. So.
that's all.
I'll just
Yes.
echo the efforts of a lot of community folks in planning and executing the park. I was at the event on Sunday. It was fantastic. There were people from near and far, and I was 8 years old when that fire took place, and there were people I hadn't seen in 20 years who were there. So it was certainly a moving event and one worthy of this community. So thank you to everybody that was involved.
Yeah, the presentation itself was very well done.
Yes, it
I
was.
thought. I mean,
Yeah.
all due respects to the audio,
Yeah, Mike.
but
no.
some people you could hear fine,
Ex-
and
and I
others
don't
you
know.
couldn't. I just
have no idea
it was
why.
weird.
It was how close they had this to them.
Yeah,
I think,
guess.
getting it, depending on the microphone, if you have to get it into your face, so. All right, thank you. And so therefore, we need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
And seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Thank you and good night, everyone. But it's finished. So that's the date of memory.
Yeah.
But, yeah.